And yes, thank you for joining with us this afternoon and on a Friday. I must admit we got the date wrong, as who would put a webinar on a Friday night. And now that we've done it, thank you for making the effort to attend these sessions. Today's topic is about payroll tax and lodgement capabilities via gov reports. As payroll tax is self-assessed and based on wages paid or payable by the employer to its employees, and when the total wage bill of employer exceed the threshold amount, the payroll tax is triggered and rates threshold vary between states and territories. And since 2007, six states and territories have enacted and harmonized or attempted payroll tax legislation with Queensland, amending their legislations existing legislations to introduce their aligned provisions in these key areas. Western Australia then joined in later in July, and since then payroll tax became available by SBR, and of course we released payroll tax and gov reports in 2012, which incorporate all the states and territories and payroll tax reporting form, both monthly and annually, depending on which state you're in and your client's reporting requirements. And today, lucky for me, we have the honor of having Debra Anderson, who is a registered BAS and tax agent, to talk to us about the payroll tax in more details and how she uses gov reports to meet the payroll tax obligation for her clients. Debra is not a stranger in the bookkeeping industry, having operated her own business, bookkeeping business for over 20 years, participate in many of the ATO working groups that I know of, and is a member of the ATO Advisory Board and Tax Practitioner Board. Debra has extensive software usage over the years. She also authors the book, Taking Care of Small Business, that I need to read, and we are so glad chose gov reports to work with in her business. So without further ado, I will now pass the control to Debra.
Thank you, Tiana, but I have to say I'm very disappointed to hear you haven't read my book yet. What have you been doing?
I have to buy that.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our webinar tonight on a Friday night. So I hope you've all got a glass of bubbly, because payroll tax isn't exactly a big thing to do on a Friday night. But here we go. So I've been using gov reports now for many, many years. The payroll tax side of it for me has been a bit of a lifesaver, because with a lot of the clients and a lot of the different jurisdictions being the OSRs in the different states, they are continuously changing their login details for clients. So one of the issues I've had with a lot of my clients is that they get notification from the different state governments and they forget to pass on the detail. I go to do their payroll tax return at the beginning of the next month, and sure enough they hadn't passed on the details. So the great thing with gov reports is that you can go to one place, you don't have to have separate logins for every state, but also you don't have to have a separate login, or you don't have to have the login for the particular state. You can just have your normal gov reports login. So firstly, for those of you who haven't met me, this is me. I'm not looking quite so glamorous tonight, but that is me. And if you are ever at a conference or anything like that, please do come and say hello. So firstly, when you log into Gov Reports, this is your normal dashboard. I'll just close down the webinar dashboard. So this is the dashboard that you go into. Now tonight we're using a demo file, so you know things aren't live, but you'll get a pretty good idea of how it works. So when you go in to do your payroll tax, the first thing you do would be going to the My Clients tab. Now this will show you all your clients. Of course, you can go in there and show up to 100 at a time, but the thing to remember here is pick your client. And then over here on the right-hand side, we pick forms. Now this is if you want to create a new payroll tax submission. So here under Mercy New South Wales organisation, I click over here to forms and I say OSR. Now this one always gets me because it does default to ATO. Sometimes I'm like, where is it? So just remember, go to the OSR tab, and here you've got every single OSR placed in one easy to find place. Now, one of the biggest questions that people have an issue with is actually logging in the very first time. So the very first time you do need to log your, or you do need to link, sorry, your OS key with your with the OSR. Now, Tiana, I've actually, oh, here we go. I thought I'd lost it. So to do that, you log into the particular jurisdiction. In this case, we've got Queensland. And what you need to do is press on here, the button that shows you the OS key. And then when you click in there, it will actually ask for the user ID and password and also the robot code. And it will ask you to link your OS key with that code. Once it's linked, you can then use it through Gov Reports as if you were just lodging a BAS as per normal. So just remember, you do need to link it through OSR first. There's a whole bunch of different logins here. If you do get stuck, give Tiana a call. Sorry, Tiana, I've just dobbed you right in. But she can send you the links for the different OSR websites. So going back to here, my client, I'm actually going to do a New South Wales one because I am based in New South Wales, so that one I'm really comfortable with. And we're going to do a monthly return. Now remember, the system is actually a lot faster than this. We are in a test system, so there is a bit of a time lag, so don't think it's quite like this in a normal situation. So for Mercy New South Wales, we're going to do the March payroll tax, and here we get to pick what sort of employer they are. The majority of my clients are non-grouped, but you know, just be aware that there are the different types, whether they're government agencies, if they are grouped, and you do need to make sure you get that right, otherwise it won't go through. So in this case, Mercy New South Wales is a non-grouped employer, and then what we need to do is go in and put the various different categories for the, you know, what is subject to payroll tax. Now we're only doing March in this case, so I think in this case they might pay $20,000 in salary and wages. The fringe benefits that have been given to employees during that period. Most of my clients, we only know the fringe benefits at the end of the year, so generally I'm only putting that in once a year, so I tend to leave that as 0. Any allowances that are subject to payroll tax, often again I do tend, I'll be honest, I do tend to put those up in the salary and wages category, and that's because the reports that I get out of the software that I'm using don't really separate out the allowances when I'm looking at it. So, and it's the same payroll tax rate on everything anyway. Superannuation, the 9.5%, just for ease here, I'm just going to call that $2,000. And of course putting in any contractors or consultants that are, I guess, deemed employees for payroll tax. In this case we'll say none. ETPs, I'm going to put none again, but again they just get separated out. And I'm sure that's all just for statistical purposes, not for anything really useful. Apprentices and trainee wages you need to put in separately, and the reason for that is that they are generally payroll tax exempt. So that will reduce the payroll tax. It should reduce the payroll tax. Ooh, that's interesting. Anyway, 0. And interstate wages. Now the interstate wages is a really interesting point here because you get different thresholds in every state. So for example in New South Wales the threshold I think is depending on what month it is $52,000 or something like that. So if you put that you've got interstate wages, you put those in here, and that will automatically adjust the threshold that you're given. When you are doing the next states, you need to still put in interstate wages in that as well, and it will automatically adjust its threshold accordingly. And there's a nice little formula behind that, which I wouldn't worry too much about. Just let the system do it. That's the great thing about having a system like GovReports that does it all for you. So once you've entered that, I check that the Australian wages matches with my payroll report, because of course we still do have all the interstate wages, we've got the ETPs, we've got the superannuation, we've got the wages, and also don't forget, if you've got your contractors, you need to add those in as well. Across here to next. Here, are you claiming the threshold amount? It automatically knows this. So this is the information coming from the OSR, and it will come up with the threshold entitlement for that particular month. And every month has, in New South Wales anyway, every month has a different rate. It's quite bizarre. And it will come up and say what your threshold is. Now, unfortunately, I went a little bit too low here, so let me just go up to this. There we go. I'm actually going to get a slightly different result. So in this case, you can see that the threshold entitlement is 63,699, and our taxable New South Wales wages 18,301, and that's because it is the total taxable wages less what the entitlement is, and then we only pay tax based on that value. So here the tax liability is $997.32. Oh, and here we go. That's where that apprentice and trainee offset would have shown up. Do people have apprentices these days? I haven't seen one for a really long time. One of the great things I love about this is I have one particular client who is notorious for doing things late and never paying it. So what I am able to do for them is when I do their payroll tax, I click on here and authorise the payment as well. Now generally I don't make clients, I don't do any payments for any of my clients, but they have authorised me to automatically pay their payroll tax after they received many fines for not paying their payroll tax. So here what I do is I generally do it on the 1st and the 2nd of the month, but I always forward date it to the date that it's due, which is generally the 7th of the month, or you have an extension in January or July. Here you can lodge the payroll tax with the OSR, and I always here click on tick the checkbox to send a report and receipt after lodgement. Now when you do that, you get this lovely little report which I'll tell you how I use that in a moment. So here I now go to submit the payroll tax. Any ideas? How about if I just go to the one that I did earlier?
Yeah.
All right. It's nice and easy. All right. So
and by the way, you can go to My Lodgements in history. You can find the previous lodgements, and you can show that.
Down here.
Yeah.
So when you go back in for Mercy New South Wales, you'll see that in the lodged section here, you'll find all the previous lodgements. If I click on here, you'll actually be able to see the receipt of the lodgement that I did earlier today. And don't get confused when you see the word receipt false. Basically it only shows true if it's going to the ATO, but for every other SBR enabled agency it will show false. It has however gone through, hence the receipt. That's correct, isn't it, Sandeep?
That's right.
Yay, we love that. Now, The really cool thing about this is, other than knowing that it was actually done, being able to get it at any point in time, it's also this little report that prints up. Now, had our submission gone through, because I clicked email, this would have actually emailed me both a copy of the receipt plus this cool little report or the return. Now, I use this return when I'm setting up a bill in either MYOB 0 or QBO for my client if they do have to pay it, or even if I've done the automatic payment, and I attach this to the transaction. So that way, if the tax agent wants to have a look at it down the track, you want to have a look at it down the track, you're doing an audit down the track with, you know, the OSR or someone like that, you've actually got a copy of the original submitted return with that payment, and that's particularly useful, I find. So we go back to there now. Again, if I just go back to my clients, you have a history of everything that you've lodged here. So you can go back at any time to have a look. So if, for example, you know, someone asks you a question, I haven't got a copy of, you know, March's payroll tax or something like that, you can go back at any time and reprint it. Check the date, the time that it was lodged, and also the figures that were lodged with it. The other thing that we can do through Gov Reports that is awesomely handy is the annual payroll tax return. So here again, go through to your client, through to forms, over to OSR, and if you go down to the annual payroll tax reconciliation, you put your date.
Do you mind, we had the error earlier. It's because you need to select the different clients for the annual payroll tax in order for it to, the errors to appear for the same return.
Okay, so I should pick a different client.
Yep.
I can do that. Why don't we go to South Waves?
Third one?
The third one.
Oh, the third one. Okay. How about Trade Australia then? Do you Trade Australia?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. I'll go into Forms, across to OSR, and then down to the New South Wales OSR annual payroll tax reconciliation. I'll select that. Now here we need to put the range that we're doing, and the range would be the whole year. I cannot believe that it's April already, because we're about to do these again in a couple of months. Crazy. And again down to...
Debra, sorry for the interruption. Can you select this as a grouped employer, because this is a test account from the SBR, so you need to select the particular group.
Oh, okay. Do I need to click on this one, Sandeep?
No, not necessary.
All right, great, perfect, thank you. Go through to next. And here again, if we've got employees in other states, we would click this, and if we've got apprentices and trainees, we would click here as well. Here you just need to put in your annual figures, just like we did for the monthly payroll tax return. All you need to do is put in the annual figures. Here for the fringe benefits, you should get the figure there from the tax agent, or and get that from the fringe benefits tax return. And again, just fill out all these particular... Will this work, Sandeep, if I go to put through...
Yes, it's going to work.
For an ABN, no.
Yep, the ABN, I'm going to share the ABN through the chat window.
Oh, aren't you beautiful? Love it. All right, so here I'm just going to go a little bit higher, because we're dealing with an annual return. And don't forget the contractors' payments. That's one that a lot of people do forget, whether, contractors are subject to payroll tax or not. Do need to check that one. And here we go. So I need an ABN, which Sandeep has kindly put through there. Thank you, Sandeep. And the organisation name. Do I need to? Oh, here we go. It's not Mercy.
Anything you can just...
Trade. Was it Trade Australia?
Yeah, that's
something like that. Okay. And again, we go back down through to the dates. Oops, yep, no, July. And back to 30th of June. Just close that window here. And again, go through to next. Now this tells you what the total payment is. What you do need to do is go through and put how much you've already paid. Okay, so if you've already paid, say, 52,000, that will be pre-filled, won't it?
That's right. It will be pre-filled from the SBR.
SBR. So I'm not sure if many of you are aware, but SBR is actually a two-way communication with the agencies. So in the old days, we used to just push information straight to the tax office or to the Office of State Revenues. But with SBR, that information also comes back to us as well. So it's live, it's real time. So in this particular case, we've put in the total amount for the year, but the OSR New South Wales will actually pre-fill that with the amount that we have already paid. So then we know exactly we only have to pay the differential.
Just for clarifications, because this is a testing account and the client is not real, and therefore no tax has been paid, and therefore the pre-filling is nothing there at the moment. It's a zero.
Yeah. Okay. Now here I love this one where they ask us what our satisfaction code is. I don't quite know why they do that. I always just pick satisfactory, and then they ask us for some improvement comments. Quite funny, really. Again, the threshold entitlement will be pre-filled, and as will the offset if that's applicable for that particular client. Next, again here we can lodge it. Now the other thing you can do if you don't want to lodge and you want to actually, and this works with the monthly one as well, if you'd like to get your client, you can save it and validate it through SBR and send it off to the client for signature first. Then when it comes back, you can then go lodge, tick the report because we'd like to receive it back, and hopefully we will get our little receipt afterwards this time.
Because there was a lag time and you click save and validate and send for signature, so it has taken you to save and for signature rather than the lodge button. So
you gotta love that.
Sorry of the lag time.
Oh, that's okay. And this is just so everyone knows, because it is the test system, it does have a bit of a lag. Normally it doesn't have a lag. So I will just discard that for this case. Now, do we have any questions, Tiana?
We have a questions from Jenny, and her question is, what happens if you have a client operating in different states or several states? Does it automatically adjust the threshold according to the wages from other states declared?
That it does. Jenny, that's a really good question. When you are actually in the return, entering it, so if I just go into forms again, alright, so when you're doing it, once you put in interstate wages, it will automatically calculate the adjustment in threshold, and it does that for every state as well. Any other questions?
No, at this stage we're pretty clear.
Okay, all right. The great thing about this as well is when you're using payroll tax with every state has a different website. Every state has a different look and feel. So you can see here, they all look different, they all feel different, and learning the different idiosyncrasies of every website is often half your battle. The great thing about using Gov Reports is that here you've got the same look and feel across every single state. So it doesn't matter whether you're doing payroll tax in New South Wales or whether you're doing payroll tax in Queensland or Tasmania, the experience for you is identical. So that makes it a lot easier to train your staff and also a lot quicker and simpler for you just to go boom, 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 here are all the figures, here, lodged. So, yeah. Is there anything you think I missed?
Jenny, sorry, Deborah, do you, what if any confusing part of Gov Reports in the reporting process for you in the context of payroll tax at all that you envisage?
Sorry, can you ask that question again?
What if any confusing part of Gov Reports in the reporting process for you and when in the process in the context of payroll tax when you preparing that for your clients?
To be honest, I don't find it very confusing at all. I find the OSR website's really confusing, but once I've come into here and, you know, I've gone to form OSR, pick your state, it's actually quite straightforward. The only thing is, of course, the very first time that you work with that particular client, you do need to link your AUSKey to that client through the OSR website, and that means you will then have access to be able to do their lodgement this way. But it's a one-off setup, and if you have any problems, you know, the wonderful team at Gov Reports are more than happy to help you set that up.
The other questions that I have is that with payroll tax, the clients that you normally work for with payroll tax obligations, do they generally have payroll software that that do the calculations, or do you, you know, basically manually you know, calculate all the payroll tax and then bring it together and then put it into Gov Reports?
That's a really good question, Tiana. I use MYOB quite extensively, but unfortunately their payroll tax section only deals with, or their payroll tax reports, I should say, only deals with one jurisdiction. So because I'm based in New South Wales, most of my clients are in New South Wales as well, but they might have a couple of employees in other states. So I generally I set up their payroll tax report, or I set up the client's payroll tax report in NYOB as if it was New South Wales, and I run the payroll tax report, and then I have to manually take out the interstate wages and do those separately. So that can get quite fiddly.
Okay, and do you manage that with spreadsheets and do the calculations at this stage?
Actually. I do. I manage all of that in a little spreadsheet that I just basically put the total wages in, and then I put the total wages in and I manually take out those employees and come up with the amount that would go into each particular state's report.
Do you know whether the other payroll software would generate like the payroll tax for all the states? Any of the payroll tax would do that, or is that just generally just, you know, like I can understand MYOB with one state per state set up. So, but is there any other payroll software that could, you know, organize the whole of, you know, so if the clients operate across 5 states, for example, then certainly the because what we are planning to do is basically enable the upload of payroll tax forms that can preview straight into Gov reports.
So do you currently integrate with any payroll software like MicroPay or anything like that?
No, this is what we're looking at doing. Having said that, we want to understand whether that, as you said, we looked at MYOB before and we saw that's once per state, but we haven't come across ones that basically calculate the state, all the payroll tax across Australia for one company if they operate.
Personally, I am mostly MYOB practice, and none of my Xero or QBO clients actually pay payroll tax, so I haven't had to deal with that. But be interested if any of our participants online have an answer to that question. But certainly, yeah, the MYOB one, at least we've got one state worth, and I can just, take the information out, particularly in the construction industry, where we've got things like ACERT and, lots of allowances. There's lots of things to take in, move around, and can get quite messy.
Okay. It would be good for those that are attending the sessions today to give us feedback, the software that you use, and if they do calculate, because we have looked at implementing a similar table, a payroll table where you can enter the complete payroll for different states, and it does the calculations, but we held back because there wasn't much of a requirement to date from our users, so we have held back. But we would like to hear back from you, your feedback on those, and then we can analyze and in terms of planning our forward development.
I think the thing to remember there, Tiana, is that sometimes, for example, I've got a client where we pay monthly payroll tax in New South Wales, but 6 monthly in Queensland. So sometimes the periods just don't align. So that's where it can get quite tricky.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. So any other questions, or otherwise we will let you get back to your Friday night.
We have another comment from Susan, and her comment was that Xero doesn't have a payroll tax calculator or report. So
there you go. Thank you, Susan. I haven't used that, but yeah, that's good to know.
Like I said, if you've got questions or you have some other feedback with experience on your other payroll software, let us know. We are analyzing and looking at implementing features that enable our users to make use of that, and we thought payroll tax table would be a great thing, because I understand, like Debra mentioned earlier, she uses the spreadsheets to calculate all these payroll tax for if the clients have other states' payroll tax obligations.
I think that the tricky thing there, Tiana, is actually two things. The first one is having to log into a different OSR portal for every state. That's definitely a major pain point for me, and was one of the reasons why I looked at Gov reports in the very beginning, because being able to have one central place regardless of where the employees or the payroll tax, regardless of what jurisdiction it was in, is fabulous. The one experience, the one login, just makes life so much simpler. But payroll tax in itself can be quite a complicated calculation, especially when you do have someone like a construction industry with many allowances, things like the redundancy trust or ACERT, and also contractors and consultants, which don't go through the payroll system. So having to manually calculate all of those, it can be quite a complex area. So, I'm quite grateful to Gov reports that at least you make it a lot easier to watch. So thank you.
Thank you. But having said that, if we incorporate say, assuming that's the spreadsheet that you have at the moment is similar to what Gov reports would have, would that improve your experience?
Probably not, because I've still got to get that information out of the accounting software, and that's half your battle.
Okay. Got it.
Once you've got the figures, putting it into Gov Reports is the breeze.
I have a comment from Jenny, and her comment is, I used to do payroll tax for one of the company over 3 states. The biggest issue was that was what was deemed exempt or not exempt remuneration. I used comprehensive spreadsheets to calculate the total figures.
Oh, Jenny, I feel your pain. It's it would be so nice if our jurisdictions, well, you know, would all be consistent. I really do feel your pain, and that's what I mean by lodging is actually the easy part when you've got a product like Gov Reports. Calculating the figures that go in or shouldn't go into every jurisdiction is really the hardest part. Okay. Well, 22 minutes early. Awesome. You can go have a glass of bubbles and start enjoying your weekend.
As I said, this session is recorded. If you need to revisit it, it will be available from early next week. And if you've got further questions, if you something else that comes up, let us know. I do have another comment from Jenny. Is that if you're on the tax practitioner board, is this something that can be raised to go federal?
The tax practitioners board don't look after payroll tax. So, look, to be honest, I think business has been lobbying each of the individual government or state governments to abolish payroll tax. And I think South Australia, somebody already has. But don't get me started. That's a political conversation, and we could be here for another couple of hours.
And sorry to say, but Cherie has sent you a message, a message to say hope to see you on the 18th, Deb.
Oh yes, at the QBO Connect. Is it that one? The 18th.
I believe so.
Yay!
Yeah.
Well, come and say hi, Cherie.
Well, thanks everyone, and have a good Friday night.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.